Why isn't Chieftain more popular? Currently, Chieftain can easily get 90% LE res and has Explodey. That is 2 out of 3 things that are really strong in PoE, with the third being 100% spell suppression. Why isn't this class more popular? So this was an interesting post that I came across in the PoE subreddit, and to answer this question briefly, it is because it deals no damage, at least relative to other class ascendancies. It lacks generic damage increases, plus the Explodey is nice but not the best. It's seen decent use in simulacrum farming. I'd assume a few people are going the other ascendancies and then stealing the res stuff via jewels. And for those of you who don't know, what this means is that players would typically opt for either Juggernaut or Berserker, both of which can scale damage far better than Chieftain, and choose to steal the Chieftain's defensive capabilities by using forbidden jewels to allocate Valico Storm's Embrace. Lacks damage. Ascendancy isn't flexible enough. Other classes reach defenses that are good enough in hardcore solo self-found to do all content, but with far more damage. Other classes deal far more damage and less defense is needed in softcore trade. I think he is a good choice as a league starter in hardcore, but even then there's always the question, why not just start a champion or pathfinder? And this is one of the current dilemmas that players face when considering their class ascendancy in a league start scenario. For a league starter build, players will usually want a build that can both scale damage and survive endgame boss mechanics, with the damage scaling having greater priority. It doesn't matter if your build doesn't get one shot if it can't close out a boss fight in a couple minutes and gets whittled down to 0 anyways. One of the primary reasons for its lack of damage, however, can be attributed to the marauder's starting location on the passive tree. There are no good damage nodes. The explode is great on average, but you will be stuck once or twice per map with a high HP mob with nothing around it on an ascendancy with 0 damage. So as you can see, it is a fairly common belief that Chieftain will never hold a candle to the more popular ascendancies, just simply because it lacks the necessary damage scaling to warrant the opportunity cost of not rolling Pathfinder. However, just because many players believe that Chieftain will never be as popular as other classes doesn't mean that players aren't still choosing to play this ascendancy and having fun with it regardless. I was doing Chieftain for my nebulous sparker. Saves so much for not having to use melding of the flesh, and dealing with the minus res opens up more possibilities. Plus, it's a marauder with spells, and that's always cool. Everybody knows that if you want to get high max res without playing Chieftain, the most popular way to do so is via the melding of the flesh jewel. However, the biggest caveat to using this jewel is counteracting the penalties incurred by equipping it, especially because it is already difficult on some ascendancies to obtain both high LE res and high max res. So by running the Chieftain ascendancy, players can easily circumvent these penalties incurred by melding of the flesh and obtain high max resistance. And don't forget about Thessalio cleansing water, making it even easier for players to reach resistance cap as well. Chieftain is fine, but there is almost always a better way to do what you are trying to do with Chieftain. In the end, gamers will always min-max the fun out of things. If something is better, why wouldn't you play it? Feel free to play Chieftain. You'll do fine and you will have fun. So here we have a comment that recognizes the merit to both sides of the argument. And what I especially appreciate about this one is that he acknowledges the reality that there will always be gamers who like to min-max everything they possibly can in the game they enjoy. In my last video, I also briefly touched upon how no matter what happens to a video game, gamers will always choose to play their game exactly the way they want to, and there is nothing that will change that. So the best thing players can do in this scenario is to play Chieftain if they want to, while recognizing that it doesn't have the best damage scaling. But even with this taken into consideration, this doesn't mean that Chieftain is a completely useless ascendancy. I don't think the people talking Chieftain down in this thread have tried building around the explode node properly. Chieftain's explode is extremely strong when built with 100% ignite chance for chain proliferations. It's quite a bit stronger than Profane Bloom when built around, although not as generically useful. There is no other ascendancy that gives you such high baseline defenses that you can slap Magic Find on all your gear slots and just run through exploding whole screens via Fulcrum nonsense, or just Righteous Fire and Vol Breach for isolated enemies. This build is absurdly tanky for a Magic Find build and has incredible clear in tighter layouts like Crimson Temple. Having said that, Chieftain only has the explode node providing a ton of offense. The other offensive notables are a bit weak, so there's not a lot of build options that are competitive with other ascendancies. Still, These explodey builds aren't really league starters and aren't going to show up with high representation on the softcore ladder of PoE Ninja. And so there you have it. Although Chieftain will never be as popular due to its clear lack of damage scaling, when built around specialized archetypes such as magic find or prioritizing map clear speed, it most definitely has a place in the Path of Exile community. So overall, the reason I believe it isn't popular is because the Chieftain Ascendancy doesn't offer a universally well-rounded build experience in the same way that other classes do. And so that's all for this video. If you want to find out why players no longer accept your trade whispers in PoE, check out this next video.